Hello, everybody. This is JD Calderon, and I'm just on here testing this out. I recently signed up for to get the streaming out on YouTube and Facebook. I want to talk to comics about people. It's supposed to be a small business Saturday or something. Maybe get some folks on here who just talk about comics, talk about their what they're crowdfunding, that sort of thing. So I'm going to send out a link to a few people, see if anybody drops in. All right. So we're waiting. I myself personally got a few things here. I got an Indiegogo going, and these are the books I'm currently offering for the Awful Chronicles. I don't want to say as usual, but it is as usual. My time to climb. So let's see how this is gonna roll. Facebook is always slow. I said I should be streaming on Facebook. I can't find it. No, I'm definitely streaming on YouTube. I just recently added Facebook. So this is weird. I'm not seeing it here. Nobody's popping. So let me see something. All right, so I'm streaming on YouTube. Like I said, this is a test. I'm trying to see if I'm streaming on Facebook, which is weird. This doesn't look like I am. I don't know if there's something I have to reset in StreamYard. All right, I'm going to step out. I add myself to the stream. Oh, look at this.
I'm checking my lights.
Your lighting is good, John. You always look fantastic.
Oh, hey, listen, I got to make sure that I'm ready for my look close up.
Gotcha.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I was supposed to be part of this other thing where that was going on, some online con, but it was kind of hard to figure out and navigate. So I was just like, you know what? I just signed up for a little bit more of an advanced account on StreamYard. So I'm supposed to be streaming on Facebook
Yeah.
and YouTube now. So I'm trying to test it out, and then it's like, what is it? It's what is it? Saturday. It's like Saturday, Small Business Saturday.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I figure, let's get some people on. Let's talk about comics. Let's let everybody advertise their stuff.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Perfect sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so how you been, John?
I've been fine. It's been quite a trip. Suddenly, I'm starting to juggle a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
So
what are you doing besides? I know you were doing your Blood Angel. What else are you doing?
Well, what's happened is that I just got offered a possibility to work on an animated feature again.
Ooh, nice.
So that's like I'm waiting. I mean, I know one person who is working on it. So they contacted me through LinkedIn. So it's kind of like, all right, let's see what happens. So I've jumped through. It's not even a matter of just jumping through hoops. It was just kind of, this is a Canadian thing, and so they say, okay, we'll set you up through this and talking about money and blah blah blah, and we'll talk to you. This is all in a matter of 2 days.
Right.
So I got a meeting. I got an interview, a meeting on Tuesday, and we'll see what happens there with the director and whatnot. So we'll go from there. But anyway, there was like suddenly it puts a big dump, of work on top of me to do, because it's a full-time thing.
Right.
And so but anyway, no, with Bloodwing, I'm just moving straight forward onto that. So yeah, that's
progress.
Well, what it is, I'm into the. Let's see. I've got enough material for about 12 issues so far without doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So all I have to do is just move, just start fine tuning it. It's all been written. It was published. I did some. The novella was published like in 2013.
Right.
And so and then I pitched it. I developed it into a TV idea. So that between those two, suddenly it becomes easy to do as a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
So so now it's a matter of, okay, I'm at that point right now where I've got about 66 pages already done.
Right.
And so it's just moving forward and just, okay, let me cut and paste and start saying, okay, what works here, what works there, what works best, and combine a novella with the TV script, and you start playing around. How that works.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, like how were you? How did you find it? Like breaking it down from a novella, because I've done it I've done several.
Yeah. Well, you see, when I wrote it, I was thinking, from as a filmmaker's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are two different things. Writing. I mean, when you write a novella, when you write that, you can't do you can't do it as a comic book script. There's a lot. I did it from the point of view of one character, Michael, the angel. Mm-hmm. And so we're in the character's head all the time.
Right.
So you're feeling that. I'm not doing it from the outside, looking down, and I didn't really have it as a, as a situation of jumping points of view. I was always on Michael's. So when I went and dropped it, and I said, okay, well, when you do that for TV, you need to have all other characters and really flesh them out. So that's what I did when I did the TV thing. I started introducing, I had the characters already in the novella, but then I had to do their backstory and say, okay, I'd already done a backstory, but I said, okay, now you have to start introducing them a lot earlier. And so that's when you start, bringing in characters earlier on in the storyline. Then you start jumping points of view, and character development, right. And then it starts changing. So, and so.
What was like? It's funny because you're working on your own script, so it's probably a little easier for you. So I know sometimes I'll break down, my prose. So like, you'll have an action scene, so you'll be like, okay, so this guy maybe throws a right hook, and then this, that, and the other thing. I don't like to be the type of. Sometimes I'll do it, but I don't like being the type of writer where it says, okay, fight scene here. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Well, that's the. Actually, it really depends on what is important in that fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
You can't choreograph that yourself as a writer, because unless it's really important that the character jumps on, or there's a fight a certain way that it has to end so that the character can escape or is set up for some other major plot point. But I go from the point of view of bullet points in a scene, and then and that's how I've always constructed, whether it be a novel or a novella or a script for animation or for TV. What are the bullet points that have to be hit at certain points in the script itself, because everything is time related. I'm used to an animation script having to be done within so many minutes. See, TV. So you always have, you only have so much time. So to overwrite is stupid. It's a waste of energy, because you don't get to shoot more, like three different setups and points of view. You have one.
Right. Exactly. I mean, like I said, when I'm breaking it, sometimes what I'll do is, depending on the artist I'm working with, someone I've worked with for a while, I'll just take a chunk of prose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, extrapolate the scene from this. You understand? I'll give them the dialogue separately, facial expressions, all that jazz. But I will give them just this chunk, so long as it's not like a narrative, it's a descriptive.
Yeah.
So it's a descriptor. So it's just you're there. I'm describing the scene and what's going on in that jazz, and that seems to work out well. Because the artists they usually come up with their own spin on the scene, so it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll usually have to go back and like tweak the dialogue and that jazz.
Yeah. Well. The tweaking continues until the final typeset.
All right, I got somebody else. I got an Alan St. Clark trying to sneak in, so we're gonna let him in.
All right.
I don't know.
Hello. How is everybody?
We're good. How you doing, Alan?
Not too shabby. Not too shabby. How was everyone's, I guess, harvest day?
Our turkey day.
Yeah, or Thanksgiving Day. I'm old, so.
Yeah, mine was good. John, how was yours?
It was good. We didn't have any turkey because I made chicken cutlets,
right?
Milanese. So we do it differently because there's only the two of us. So
gotcha.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah, as long as I can go into a food coma, it's all good.
Oh, okay. There you go. All right.
Afterwards, Alan, how was yours?
I tend to not celebrate this holiday, so.
All right, cool. Where are you from, Alan?
I live in California, but I've been all over.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Before California, I lived in Georgia.
Gotcha. Georgia's nice. I've only been there once, but it's nice. How's Cali?
So far, with the pandemic, it's nice.
Okay. Was everybody's indoors? You can walk around. There's nobody around, that sort of thing.
I don't think anyone's actually paying attention to the "please stay your ass indoors" demands, but I'm staying indoors. So
Right.
so
So are you a writer, artist? What do you do?
I do both. I make and I draw, I illustrate and write comics. So that's usually I do both ends of the spectrum.
All right.
What's your book?
Right now, I'm working on science fiction soap opera called Babylon. The first series is called Love Is a Dead Place.
Nice.
And it's set in it's set in the time of tomorrow, and it's about a community crime syndicate known as the Rainbow Princesses, as they are dealing with the encroaching gang problem called the KKs, which are the clowns, or the clown clones. There's a whole different thing with that. And it starts off with that, and it becomes a pan-galactic. It becomes the story about human expansion in a pan-galactic sense of the southern hemisphere of the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Starts off from there, and it kind of expands like a soap opera.
Gotcha. So it was like a space opera. That's what we used to call it back in the day.
Soap opera, space opera. It's still a soap opera.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I mean, so that's cool. How long have you been working on that?
Too long. I don't want to say it out loud.
Come on, say it out loud. I've been working on the Awful Chronicles for 25 years.
Yeah, let's go with that. I mean, I got issue 1 revisited back online. I'm doing episodically.
Mm-hmm.
So I put up like a few pages online for free for people to read and view, and if they wish to donate, they can.
Gotcha. What's the website?
Phantom Electric with a K at the end. So it's Phantom Electric. Instead with a C, it has a K.com.
Nice.
See if I could put that somewhere.
So you've been working on this forever. Now what's the holdup? What's been keeping you from executing this?
Oh, I have been executing it. I've been, it just takes it. I had a moment where I executed it once, and then I'm now in the state of revisiting and revisioning it as well. And now I feel it's more of a solid piece. I feel like the story is more alive than it was before. And now I'm just exposing it to, new victims. Victims I didn't have before, or victims I did have before, and they get to re-experience it all over again.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
I was going to ask, are you going to crowdfund it?
Maybe. I haven't really addressed that issue yet. I'm just putting episodes up, and in time I should have a very girthy graphic novel, and I wanted for at the time being to be free for the people.
Okay.
If you have a device, you can read it. I wish that wasn't the case, but right now, if you have a device, you can read it for free, and I want people to read it for free. I want this form of entertainment to be available to all people, even though it is age specific. Comics for the people in the best way I can. And I am working on another graphic novel series called Rise of the Black Panthers, which is about the history of the Black Panther Party.
Oh, cool.
That one I might have to crowdfund, but I have a issue 1, which is about 70, 80 pages long, which starts off from the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade and pretty much ends with the birth of the Black Panther Party. And then the second issue takes place immediately after that.
Nice. Okay. So, I mean, so you, like I said, I've been working on my stuff for years. So you've been working on this for a minute, like you said, 25 years plus.
Well, Babylon, I've had the creation, the birth of it was when I was a teenager. Gotcha. And now I feel like the characters are mature enough in my mind that I can, begin to let them out into the real world. They've matured in which they all have their own individual identity. They all have their own quirks, desires, fallbacks, flaws, faults,
right?
And not just perfect characters that are living, they're doing perfect things. They are problematic characters that are trying to exist in a problematic world.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Well, I know that so many people say, you need to have a raft to work from, without experiences, you have no basis to make a commentary or at least draw from to be able to create characters. If you're doing them out of whole cloth, well, yeah, but it still has to be, tempered, and it has to touch, an actual experience for it to ring true. Otherwise, readers are not going to relate to it. So age does need to, the characters need to be aged, and so does the writer, before something good really comes out of it, unless you are a pure genius.
Even pure genius needs to be tempered by age.
Yeah.
Good editor doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
A good mentor or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. I think, some people, they release these purely just pure power fantasies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is highly problematic for, as a collective, to just be reading power fantasies without there being some type of, problem that, engages the power fantasies and humbles it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. Now we got Marv, the Sin Killer. This is the first time I think I've ever had you on my channel, Marv. How you doing?
Hi. Finally, it's great to meet you. To meet you guys, John, JD, Alan. I don't know you, but man, it's great to meet you too, man.
You as well.
Well.
So let's introduce Marv. So Marv, what you working on? The Sin Killer. I've heard you once or twice on Randy's channel. So what's going on?
Yeah, the Sin Killer is the story of a veteran soldier from Vietnam. He was raised as a priest. He's an orphan, and he lost faith in God when he was in the war. He saw his buddies die, and he came back. He became a grave digger, and he have these superpowers that he's a skinny old man, but he can bring back the dead, and he brought back a raven. He named it Gabriel, and Doberman. He named him Michael. Influences from the Bible, but he's not a believer. But the dog is able to bring back the dogs that he killed when he was alive. He was a fighting dog. And Gabriel, the raven, is able to bring back to life his flock that died too. So they punished the people that hurt others. So the Sin Killer goes to their funeral, and he feels the pain of the dead people. And then if they are not satisfied with justice, so they hunt down the bad guys, and they punish them. But John, the Sin Killer, is just a way to Michael and Gabriel punish the guys. He's just a vessel of power. He's not a superhero or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, well that's cool. So I mean, what we all have Genesis. We all have this place these stories come from for us. I know for the Awful Chronicles, it was basically just a challenge for me. What was it that drove you to want to do this story?
I've been a freelance illustrator and a painter for over 10 years. I did exhibitions and I published books, but after watching Jeff Lafferty's channel and the Berserker Knot, how it was made, and the passion that I have for comics, I decided to make one myself. So it was the inspiration for me to start making comics. And one day I was listening to Dave Matthews Band, the Gravedigger, and the story just start popping up, and then Pantera with Cemetery Gates and other bands. Just listening to them, the story came to my mind, and now it's almost done. Almost done. It's my first comic, but almost done.
Gotcha. I got another guest coming in. Like I said, I opened this up to everybody, so it's one of these things we're just gonna have people keep dropping in.
Yeah, great. That's awesome.
Yeah. So here comes Nacho. I like that. How you doing, Nacho? Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello? Nacho? I can see you. Can you hear me? I think he's having problems hearing me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it looks like if it's StreamYard, it might be a problem with the phone.
Yeah. I know sometimes, what is it? Safari. I know StreamYard hates Safari for some reason.
Yeah. It's a terrible thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so
we lost Nacho.
JD, you said that your Oswald Chronicles was a challenge.
Well, what happened was, Daphne will disagree with me a little bit. Daphne and I were taking a walk through Manhattan, and we were going crosstown. And from, I guess, walking from Lexington to Fifth Avenue, you pass Park Avenue. On Park Avenue, there are meridians in between, these huge stone garden paths that are taken care of by the buildings around it. And they're manicured like you want to believe. This street, if you ever walk down this street on Fifth Avenue from like 51st down uptown all the way up to probably like 103rd Street or even beyond, it's just all banking institutions. And they take care of this street. This is the most manicured area, I think, of the city, because it's a portion of the city that has the most money, because it's just banks. So the streets are power washed. These embankments are just all just covered with flowers and trees or whatever. But whatever, we were walking, and I see like some flowers like was crushed and on the floor or whatever, and one of these things. And I looked and I pointed to it and I said, Daphne, it's just some fairies probably really pissed off. Some troll ate her flowers, right? And she looked at me like I was insane, and I was like, that would make a good story. She was like, that's really stupid. I was like, really? Okay. So I sat down and I wrote this story.
Okay.
It's called the Park Avenue Mall War, and basically what it was, Oswald was just a storyteller. He wasn't even supposed to be in the story. But I wrote a second story, and he just got interjected. He just interjected himself, and he was like, okay, this is my thing now. And it's just like, and it became his story. So that's how that happened.
Okay. Yeah. Well, having a mouse on Park Avenue, getting, just living there, and it's amazing what's going on underneath that road.
Right, exactly. That's the whole thing, and it's just all on top of the mall. The fairies are invisible. So and then Oswald himself, he's just running around. He's the entity that's trapped between two worlds. He's trapped between the magical and the reality. Between men and the fae. So that's how that story works out. Alan, where did you actually, John? I'm sorry, Alan, I'm gonna get to you. But John, where did Bloodwing Angel come from?
Well, Bloodwing, I remember exactly the time when I decided to do it. It was in one of the lowest points in my personal and professional career, and I said, okay, God and Satan are playing with me. I felt that that everything I'd done, everything you could possibly do right. And the book of Job came to me, the idea, I know the Bible, I'm Catholic, there's a lot of stuff you learn, and even by then I was 64 years old. So I said, okay, I said it felt like I was being, messed with, because there were things that were happening that I had no control over, and I said, this is wrong. So anyway, I decided, okay, well, I'm going to do, I just decided that how about if an innocent angel gets messed with and gets just, that you have a very innocent angel and becomes the pawn of, well, in the book of Job, that's what happens with Job. Right. Satan comes and walks into the, Satan walks into a bar and talks to God, and they say, okay, listen, I bet you I can make that guy, do all kinds of bad things. And you think he's so good. And he says, God said, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, well, listen, just don't kill him. You can do anything you want to him. But he won't. So I'm saying, okay, here you are. What happens if an angel, a little angel, an innocent angel, gets thrown out of heaven, gets thrown out, or wherever you want to call it? It's out of humanity and out of, in essence, what happens if God or Creatus, that's the character I use as the all powerful being. What happens if Creatus breaks his promise to the angel? Because if the angels are, if you do what I say, you please me or whatnot, I will never put you into any harm's way. I will not, forsake you, whatnot. But the angel gets thrown out and is thrown into the mortal realm. Well, it's breaking a promise, and so therefore, in my idea, is it just rips the universe apart. It tears the fabric of universe apart momentarily, and then it's restitched. But then what happens in the restitching? Everything has changed.
Gotcha.
And that's the premise of how this young angel, how this little angel, an innocent, becomes, it's just turned into a mortal, but angels are both male and female.
Right.
And so we now have a both male and female angel, in a mortal form. It's a semi-mortal in this strange world that is no longer what is truth, what is evil, what is good. All of these things get, it becomes a whole. That's what Bloodwing is all about.
Gotcha.
So that's.
Like I said, man, I'm really looking forward to reading the trade.
Well, listen, it's going to take a long time because I'm going to do this episode by episode because that's the only way I can do it.
No, of course.
Yeah.
So, we got somebody in new, Kyle.
Hi. How you doing, JD? Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. I mean, there's John, Alan, Marv. We're all pretty much. Well, I've known John for a while. Marv, I've seen him once or twice. So, Kyle, man, how you doing?
Good. I'm down here in Georgia.
Nice.
And it's Small Business Saturday.
Yep.
So I've got a couple of comic book stores, and my employees are doing good. We're going to be on CNN at 5:40 today for Small Business Saturday. So I'll see how that interview went. But yeah, so everybody here is a comic creator then?
Yep.
Yeah, we're all comic creators. Yeah.
Excellent.
So you own a store?
I own 2 stores in Georgia. I am a creator as well. Hero Cats of Stellar City. You can see. Hero Cats of Stellar City, which went for 27 issues. About 2 years ago, I wrapped up season 1, and I've got about 10 more issues that I'm just waiting to release whenever it makes sense. Right now, I'm pretty busy with catching up with the stores with all of the craziness of the world. So,
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, like, what issues do you find? Like, well, obviously, COVID locking you down is not fun, but what other issues have you found that have really caused you problems during this period?
So supply chain issues. Pokemon is next to unattainable. There's a new game called Digimon that we put pre-orders in and it sold out immediately for the weekend. But DC mainly gave us a lot of courage to reopen and to start getting those books back in. But then DC's jumping around from distributor to distributor.
Right.
And, Diamond's still doing a pretty good job. But the main challenge, I would say, is just keeping up with all the we had 2 stores go out of business, and so we've had a lot of new customers. Right. And I love to beat my competition. I don't like to beat them under the circumstances this year. It's been a strange balance of watching people struggling, and yet at the same time I'm very proud of our team for getting through all those struggles. And it's been a strange year to navigate, to say the least. So, but creating comics, you guys keep the creative spirit going. And I did a lot of writing there for a while, and I did some of the covers. But I do miss working with my creators. I employed about 30 different artists, and I really miss that energy. I don't miss the deadlines. The deadlines I do not miss.
Right.
So, how long were you publishing? How frequently?
It was every other month, and it was 27 issues, and they were all on time. It was published through Action Lab Entertainment. I do not recommend Action Lab as a company, but you always sign your first contract and you pay your dues. And it got done what I needed to get done. And I kind of got all those stories out of me that I needed to get out of me. But yeah, the deadlines were crushing. And we did all the, I guess you can see the lanyards for the Comic-Cons. So that was a blast. That was great. Going to the conventions. By the way, if any of you guys have any questions from a retailer, definitely happy to answer the questions you might have, because it's definitely challenging to gain that audience and to maintain that audience. You have to have a long-term plan. The first few issues that we had sold well, but then you have to bring people back around after you've proven that you're going to stick around. So the first 3 graphic novels sold out, and so first time effort, it worked out okay. So
that's what. Now, if you don't mind me asking, what was the biggest difficulty working with your publisher?
So they were still relatively new, and I gave them a lot of passes in regards to reporting and so forth. Right. It was very frustrating to manage the business end of things at the same time as managing the creative stuff. Inevitably, the biggest thing I would say is that Action Lab was very much so an adult-oriented company that had a kids line. Mine was an all-ages series that definitely was underutilized. Mixed messaging. You'd go to the convention, they'd have the table. It would be Zombie Tramp and Hero Cats. Yay!
Right. Yeah. I would imagine.
But my wife was like, "Don't sign with Action Lab. Don't do it." And it's like, I'd already talked to Boom. I'd already talked to. We weren't going to fit in Image. We weren't going to fit in Dark Horse. We weren't going to fit in. I mean, they took a chance. Action Lab took a chance on us. I respect them for that. But there were missed opportunities, to say the least. We went to New York twice. The first time we went, it was we sold out. The second time we went, we had our own table and did far better than at the publisher's table. Right. So it's all about salesmanship, and they just didn't have salesmen. They had a bunch of people that wanted to drink and have a good time at the Comic-Cons, and you can't blame them for that. you know.
Right.
But I treated it as a business. The most important thing is that it's a creative outlet, but it's also a business. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, I have how the biggest thing that I wanted to do was get into Diamond and get into comic stores.
Right.
Now, what most people do is they'll do a crowdfunding Kickstarter thing, and if you haven't done Kickstarter, obviously it's a very, very effective way to get your product out there.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I've done Kickstarter. I've done 2 Kickstarters and 2 Indiegogos.
Okay.
The first one last year for it was a personal portfolio of my work as an animator and a comic strip artist. Since I did Boba Fett and the Star Wars Holiday Special, that was the big draw for that. And so I did quite well for me, at least, as a first timer on both Kickstarter and Indiegogo. I find that when I did the second one that I just finished, both as comic books for young kids, I found that nobody wants comic books for young kids.
Well, so
that's on both Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and that's what I'm finding is that in the crowdfunding thing, there's no kids at the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 don't have credit cards. They don't look there.
Yeah, let me jump in there, John.
Yeah.
This is where my heart is, and this is what's important for me to. I want to get some messaging out here.
Yeah.
Which is that when we're 10 years old, we decide what's cool, and that sticks with us for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And when a parent brings their kid into a comic book store, they maybe buy them a comic or 2.
Yeah.
And the parent will walk out with a stack of books. They'll spend $100, $200, and they'll let little Johnny buy a couple of books.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the money is difficult to chase, but when you figure out the equation and you figure out the access, you'll make more money than anyone would ever imagine. And I can tell you, if you haven't looked up Raina Telgemeier, she changed the industry. So what happened is that Raina Telgemeier came out with Smile and a number of other graphic novels. That graphic novel outsold Jim Lee by far, changed DC, their entire imprint. And most comic book stores that I talk to don't even know about her. And the reason why is because it's a comic book graphic novel, but it was marketed to an unserved. You guys remember Bone and Jeff Smith and all that?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These are books that would sell higher if we had the right channel to get them to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did with Hero Cats is I just completely hammered home the idea that this is for adults, but it's okay for kids too. And so if you make it cool for the kids and you market it to the adults, you'll find the equation to make the money. But yeah, it's a really, I understand artists go the easy route go a route of, there's a reason why Zombie Tramp was Action Lab's biggest seller.
Oh yeah,
boobs.
You gotta love those covers.
Yeah,
and that's fine. That's
the 10,000 of them. The 10,000 of them come out every month.
Yeah, there's a market for that, and that's fine. But I'm interested in serving the market that's underserved and finding the next generation of readers.
Right.
And so.
Well, that's what I did with Snuffy and Zoe and with Mega Moose. It's from kids from 4 to 12. You got a certain age group from 4 to 7 is Snuffy and Zoe, and then from 8 to 12 is Mega Moose. And so there are 2 separate sections for kids. And then with Bloodwing, it's all adult, and so therefore there's something for every part of the family, and hopefully that will work out, but I'm not rushing. It's there. I'll keep on doing it, and then eventually word of mouth will make it grow. As far as
I caught some of that, your faith that you were showing there, John, putting your faith into your work and so forth, and that's nice to see that you're incorporating that your life experience and beliefs and so forth into.
So guys, let me just jump in real quick. We had like a
you got a gazillion people here now.
Exactly. Yeah. We got Joe, Joseph, Michael, Randy. Look at all these guys, like superstars of indie comics.
Goodness, I don't know if I'd label myself as that, but
nowhere near a superstar. No,
superstar.
Maybe Randy. Randy is a superstar, but
Randy, I'd totally put that label on.
If tenacity gives you the superstar status, I guess I'm just too stupid to go away. That's all.
That's one thing Randy and I have in common. Too stupid to go away. Yeah. So let's start with Joe. Joe, man, please introduce yourself. We'll work our way through Joseph. We'll work our way from Joe to Joseph to Michael. So go ahead, Joe.
Okay, I'm Joe D. McPhee. I am the president of Exigency Studios. Let me come a little bit more in frame here because my chair rolled over a little bit. I'm the president of Exigency Studios. I am the creator of Amazonia, AWF, and Primetime Saturday Night, and I published one other book up under the company of Enigma. As of right now, I'm trying to gear myself up and ready for a kind of video podcast myself where I'm supposed to be interviewing somebody at 8 o'clock today. So hopefully you guys will stick around to catch that later on YouTube as well.
Nice. Joseph.
Hey, how's it going?
Nice out, Joe.
We lost Alan, I think. We lost Alan.
Yeah.
Hey, Randy, how's it going?
Good.
Been a while since I've been on your show.
That's your fault, not ours.
Yeah.
Randy's just like, hey, you don't reach out, you don't get on.
That's right. Michael knows. He reaches out all the time. We let him on. So you know our bar is low. So just get a hold of us.
Yeah, if they let me on, they'll let anyone. So
that's true. They let me on all the time. It's crazy. So Joseph, what you up to, man? What's your book like? What are you working on?
So most recent thing that got released was the Stairway Anthology with Image Comics. Came out in October. It's like a sci-fi anthology. We got a book coming up from the new imprint from Scout Comics called Scoot. I know you guys were talking about all age comics earlier. It's kind of like like Harry Potter meets Powerpuff Girls kind of a deal with a younger age audience that's geared for that. And then the thing that I talked on Randy's show about, and we're pushing mostly, is our Heroes for Causes campaign. And that's what we're doing to bring a Superman to every chronic illness, every disabling illness for every kid. So we want to give each kid their own Superman. So we did one with cystic fibrosis. Now we're doing it with pediatric brain cancer. And we're trying to expand as more funds and causes come on board. So
nice.
Cool.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and you're good. You're with good people with Scout. I've had a lot of interactions with them and lunches with them, and they're good people. They got the right approach.
What I noticed. Yeah.
And they're reaching out to the retailers correctly. So
that's cool.
They're an up and coming company for sure.
I think they're one of the fastest growing in the indie comic space.
Yeah, they're doing good.
Michael, I see you're muted.
Yeah,
your turn.
Sorry about that. I'm hanging out at work. I've got nothing better to do but sit around for 8 hours, so I figured I'd come to shoot the shit on some comics here for a little bit.
Nice.
How's it going, guys? I'm Michael Oden. I'm the creator, writer of Elysian Fields, and I have my own imprint, Nine Realms Publishing. We're currently live on both Kickstarter and Indiegogo. On Indiegogo, we are in demand with Elysian Fields, The Pyramid Gambit, and we're having a Black Friday through Cyber Monday sale on our original art. And then on Kickstarter, we just launched here yesterday the soft-bound collector's edition of Elysian Fields that collects the Zero issue and Pyramid Gambit. So if you guys are looking for some good holiday gifts, feel free to check us out. But yeah, that's what I'm bringing to the table.
Nice. So Randy, who are you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm just hanging around here. Who am I? I don't know. I'm Randy Zimmerman. I've done alternative and independent small press books for decades and decades. I'm currently part of the Indie Vault Radio Network, where we talk about comics 3 times a week. Tuesday nights at 9 p.m., Thursday mornings at 9 a.m., and Sunday morning, I do a show I'm especially proud of called Sunday Funnies, where we make it a point to talk about the more lighthearted and whimsical side of comics. So if you're into realistic, dark, noir material, Sunday Funnies might not be for you.
Unless it's Dick Tracy.
Unless it's Dick Tracy, absolutely.
There you go. So, Alan, what's up with that mask? I like that, bro.
I'm your friendly neighborhood supervillain. So per union, we are required to wear a mask at all times. We must always remain invisible. It's the supervillain union. If you were a member, you understand.
Gotcha. All I got was a card. They didn't tell me anything about a mask.
Oh no!
No relation to the Guild of Calamitous Intent.
No, that's a cartoon. This is real shit here. Real villain, not just cartoon bullshit.
Real
actual villainy.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, Kyle, I wanted to ask you a question because you own 2 stores.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: as an independent creator, we're always trying to get into other outlets, trying to sell our books however we can.
100%.
So, how would you suggest for an independent creator to approach you or any retailer if they wanted to get their books in your shop?
So that's a question that I've dealt with over the years. I'll tell you the pros and cons. First, we definitely want to support local talent. Mm-hmm. If it's local, that's an extra win, because we know that that this is a community that everybody wants to come in and so forth. And so if you're local and you're a creator, that's an easy support system. Different stores have different philosophies in regards to how much they can or are interested in supporting. Certainly, every comic book store owner is their own creature, and just build that relationship with them. Like anything else, most stores, if they're honest, are going to look at the product and say, is it going to earn its spot on the shelf? It's all competing. It's a massive competition. And so make sure that your work is the highest quality that you can provide. And also make sure that the work that you're doing is unique or has its own niche that's really going to help with an audience. So, of course, we love one-stop shopping. We have a 600-page catalog that we have to go through each month and make tons and tons of decisions as to where we're going to risk our money. So that's the most logical thing. I mean, if a creator says, "Hey, my book is in diamond, can you order it?" Well, I'll look at the page, and yeah, as long as it seems like it's going to sell, I'll order a few extra copies to support them, just for reaching out and calling. So Diamond is definitely a monopoly in regards to that aspect. Kickstarter, I've talked to so many Kickstarter people, and it's very, very difficult to structure a retail level incentive, because the Kickstarter model is $25 a book to $20 a book, which, doesn't match up. Hang on, just up. I think my wife's home. Hang on.
And there you go. There goes.
Hey.
Oh, cliffhanger.
So,
hey, honey, I'm talking to strangers on the internet. No,
we're not strangers. We're not strangers. We're weirdos.
Yeah.
Well, this is honestly the first time that I've jumped into a group that I'm not familiar with, but it is definitely a joy, and I'm going to wish you guys all the best of luck with your efforts. Build that relationship with your local stores, and here's a trick, the biggest trick. Okay, if you can go to a retailer summit and stand in front of those retailers during a presentation, I can tell you that as your customers are not your end buyers. your customers are the comic book stores.
Mhm.
If you focus on selling to comic book stores in a way that's going to speak to them, you'll have long-term success. And there are some creators that get that and are able to get in front of the retailers. The last 2 retailer summits have been virtual, which have been made it even more easy for these creators to present to retailers.
Mhm.
So if you can do that, and then the other thing is that if you can get a free comic book day book, it's a win. So when I first approached Diamond about Hero Cats, I said my goal is to sell 100,000 copies of the book,
Wow.
and they laughed. And we had it done in 1 year, and a large part of it is because of Free Comic Book Day. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, build those relationships with the retailers, the good ones. Which there's a list of good ones,
Yes.
and so. But okay, gentlemen.
Thank
Wish you the
Kyle.
best of luck. You can find the books at Hero Cats online, yada yada, blah blah blah. But seriously, if you friend me on Facebook, I'm available. If you have any questions. But keep up the great work, guys. Keep putting that out there. And as they say, this industry will break your hearts, but we love it. So
Yeah.
Kyle,
All right.
we'll reach out. We'll try to set up for a private interview.
I'm available. You can find me Galactic Quest or Facebook, Kyle Putkammer. So,
I'll find
alrighty,
you.
take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks.
Look out.
Take care.
Oh,
Right, so I mean, so I open it up to the floor, guys. Like, so how do you guys feel about how have any of you guys approached retailers to sell your books in their stores? And what have been your successes?
I have found, especially right now, it's a very tenuous time for a lot of retailers to invest in indie books because they are so focused on trying to get books that they know they can sell in. And so the question, especially if you're an up and comer, like me, I'm literally doing my second book right now. So a retailer is going to look at me, and even though I've been successful on the crowdfunding side of things, they look at that and they're like, well, this guy doesn't really have a name. He hasn't really been around the community that long. How many people are actually going to look at his books? How many people are going to actually buy? And that will, and then you add into the fact that, I the books may be a bit pricier because I'm going for a more trade style format. There's a lot of things that play into that discussion, and so unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of luck getting into retailers. But again, it's one of those things that as you build your career and what have you, that door starts to open a bit more and more as you get out there. And I think another big thing that's going against a lot of these guys that are just getting into the field is they haven't been able to go to conventions. And I think that as great as it's been to be on a lot of these shows and what have you, there is no substitution to being at a convention, seeing a customer and talking to them about it and them getting a chance to know you and walk away with some of your product in tow. So I think that that's a huge disadvantage for a lot of us that are just getting started right now. But I mean, it's something that we got to figure out and move through.
This is true. Now, hold on. I want to add Joseph. So you said you had books drop from Image, and there was another company you worked with?
Scout Comics. That'll be out in first quarter 21.
Okay.
But I've published, excuse me, 3 titles independently over the past 8 years. To answer your question about getting into retailers for independent artists and creators and whatnot, we were in 50 stores with Only Human. And a lot of that came with networking. We weren't in Diamond at the time, but it was knowing a lot of the shops, being in online communities. Like Alan said, going to a lot of shows. We did 30 shows within, I think, 2.5, 3 years. So it's just, being a familiar face at that convention circuit, being friendly with everyone, trying to help everyone out. knowing all, like you said, knowing all the local comic book shops within a 50 square mile radius.
Right.
And then, yeah, but, you know, as far as independent books go, you know, there is a certain stigma where a lot of shops won't even carry independent books because they won't sell 300 copies.
Right.
And, you know, so a lot of the stores, you know, they'll want consignment terms or at least half cover. But then a lot of the guys they'll take on a new independent book from an unknown name, you know, it's kind of, they're not doing it from a business perspective. You know, they're doing it to help out the independent guys because, you know, we might be the next crop of talent that, you know, starts writing for some of the bigger names or has a popular book. So it's kind of that, you know, but you also got to support your own industry that you work in. So I always feel bad because I can't back every single person's Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. Just, you know, we don't have the resource to do, and a lot of independent guys, you know, we're struggling creators. So I think it'd be different if we came in from like Wall Street and then we were like, all right, I'm going to back the next 500 people's Kickstarters that drop the link on my profile, which would be cool. But yeah.
Now the 50 stores were you in? Now, did they like, were you selling? I mean, I don't want you to give me an exact number because I really don't need that. But I mean, did you find that it's significant? Like you sold a significant amount of books to them? Like, were you selling like 5 or 10 books per store, 20 books per store? You know, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, up to about 10 or 15, I think was our 20 was our largest order. That was like a drop shipment. We were in Montana, all across the states.
Right.
So yeah, the farther we shipped the book, it seemed like the more copies they wanted because when you're already paying $8 or $10 for shipping, you might as well drop another 5 or 10 books in there because it's not that much more if you only charge in a couple bucks at wholesale for some of these books.
Right.
But yeah, then the local comic shop circuit, those guys see you on a regular basis, so they'll take 5 or 10 at a time. And as they sell out, you know, you just go around, you know, stop in, say hi, kind of shoot the shit or whatever, and then restock them if you need to. So.
All right, cool. So I mean, Marv, because I know you're in Europe, right?
Yeah, I'm in Portugal, and everybody talks about comic book shops, and I don't have one comic book shop. Miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles.
So how are you dealing with sales? Are you just doing it through like Indigo, through crowdfunding?
No, this is my first comic. The 2 books that I have published weren't mine. I did the art only. So this is, everything is new to me. I'm learning from everybody, and scares me a little bit because I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'm just having fun and thinking about doing the comic, finish it, and then I'll have those white hairs.
Gotcha.
Later.
Right.
So
John, have you had any success in this area?
Well, I've only done, I mean, the success that I had years ago, self-publishing in mysteries.
Right.
And back then, you had Ingram, Baker and Taylor books. I was on all of this is pre-Amazon. Remember, so we're talking about the mid 90s to about 2000. That was before Amazon took over, and Ingram started to swallow up all of the distributors. Right. So while I was there, you know, did some comic book stuff. Yeah, my bestseller was sort of a Sunday school comic book I did back in the 90s, and I sold 10,000 copies of each of like the 72-page trade paperback. So I had maybe about 30,000 sales.
Wow.
Back then. But that was because it was unique, it was different, and it was something that they wanted. And so on. But then that market changed because a lot of the publishers there in the church groups, they started making their own stuff, and then things changed, and you couldn't. Small people weren't allowed in. So That's basically what happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Isn't that how it happens? They're like, you have a nice little success.
It's
like,
amazing. It's amazing. What money does everywhere. It doesn't matter what the message is.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but in the mystery market, we sold. We were quite well, doing quite well, and had got reviews from the Chicago Times.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago Tribune rather, and things of that sort. So we were fine until Ingram put the kibosh on us and said, okay, from now on, you have to give us like 75% or 70% discount, and then, that's how I got out of it. So for me right now, crowdfunding is the only way I can actually produce a $5 book, that and do 2 of them and charge $5 shipping. So for $15 you get 48 pages worth of stuff. That's the only way that makes it even reasonable. And I can't see being able to sell a $5 book as an independent in a bookstore.
Right.
There's no way for that. So I would rather work on my own list of eventual readership, and then doing word of mouth that way. That's the only way that I can see doing it for me. But I'm not trying to create, build a career. I'm in Act 3, so I'm not worried about that.
Uh-huh.
If what I do opens up an awareness for more books like what I'm doing with Snuffy and Zoe and Megamoose, and even with Bloodwing, that's great. But I'm not building something for the next 30 years.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, what's been your success? Yeah, I don't know. Have you ever tried to sell to retailers and that sort of thing? I mean, how successful have you been?
I pretty much put that on the back burner because of the simple fact of consignment. Here in Chicago, it's like most of the stuff is based upon consignment, and then on top of that, you rarely get to see the money from the split that you're supposed to have from it, and you rarely get that call back for restocking.
Right.
And just the hoops that you have to go through just to get the consignment, because a lot of times the way that I get those consignments is that I actually have to have a comic book signing at that store, and then they see that I bring people into the store not only for my books, to them to buy other books that's in the store. So technically, by having my book there, they saw there's other potential customers that could be frequenting their store, and then they say, hey, we saw that we got any sales from you today. We'll house maybe like five of your books real quick here, see how it works out. I go back to the store, 5 books are no longer there, but they don't have any tracking of what was sold and what was put in the order bin and all this other stuff, because you never know.
Right.
And I never got a call to say, hey, we want to reorder another 5 or 10 or 15. It's not worth it at that point. It's like it's almost like you're making them money and you're not gaining anything from it.
Right. No, I got you, man. Yeah, there's some shady stores out there. Like fortunately I have Midtown Comics, and believe it or not, those guys are awesome. If they order from you, they just pay you. They're like, yeah, give me 20 of each, and they'll just pay you. They don't even care. Like, they have so much money that they just don't care. It doesn't happen too often, but that's how they deal with it. They're like, yeah, because for them it's actually a hassle to do consignment, because they're like, if I gotta consign it, then I gotta pay you later. Like, no, I'll just pay you now.
And they have to keep track of it, for in a different way, and then who knows what's going to happen. It is New York,
Yeah, exactly. So let's move. Alan, have you ever self-published anything and tried selling it to stores?
I have, and I mainly focus. My focus is a 2-tier focus. One is not directly to comic book stores, but more towards bookstores. I find that bookstores are more friendly with my product than I believe comic book stores. I've had a run around with comic book stores here in the Bay Area. Some of them would be okay with it. Some of them are, as Joe mentioned, the runaround. And unless you are present there, then they don't know if you're there.
Right.
And to avoid that, I've been mainly focusing on the second tier, which is online focus. Focusing on putting things on episodically on the website to get people engaged and returning. So by the time that a graphic novel is completed, or the amount of content that would go into a graphic novel is completed, there will already be a existing market, and then I will merely perhaps theoretically crowdfund to print the book and then distribute that to those who are my online customers. But my focus has mainly been online. I feel that as a comic book industry, we need to have more focus in that direction. We're kind of behind in catching up and creating an online presence. We are online, but we have not really mastered and really controlled the webcomic culture. I mean, there is a webcomics culture. There's been a webcomic culture for a while. Us, perhaps in like mainstream comics, I think we're playing catch up, and I'm in the experience of playing that catch up.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I'm actually looking at doing something similar, because I'm looking at kind of experimenting with a few projects and putting them up on Webtoon first and try and build an audience there. And then once we build an audience, we launch a crowdfunding campaign to get it printed and market it well.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of cats doing that recently.
Let me just say this, from what my understanding, because I did with Bloodwing originally as a web comic on my own website, but there's a difference in terms of how, like, Webtoons and some of the other groups, other places where the audience goes to, you have to create your comic in a completely different mindset than a page, right?
Yeah.
Because they're used to scrolling, and so it's not flipping, and the whole dynamics of what you can do. You have to think in both ways before you start, saying, okay, I'll do this. You don't want to redo all that work to print it, and so there's a problem there where the artwork has to change. It's not even just subtly, unless you're doing talking heads and you're doing, a four panels a page. Well, that's okay. But if you're going to start playing around, stylistically, like with a Will Eisner, you're breaking panels, you're doing things that are different. You have to really think about what it is that your ultimate goal is, in terms of what your final goal is with the comic, because that's how you want to have the artwork done.
I feel that Scott McCloud explored this back in Understanding Comics and Making Comics. He explored the avenue in which comics will have to begin emerging within the online market, and the translation between online and print has not been as difficult as we may have been making it. It's actually a much easier transition than we want to give, that we give to it. I think we add a little bit more complication than necessary, but transition between online to print is not as difficult as we were in fear of. But with that being said, the online transition is going to be necessary as much as print is. I love printed comics, mind you, but I am also ecologically aware that printed comics is not green friendly. Sure. And I like the flip. I like the hold of a comic book. I like the hold of a graphic novel, but I have to take into consideration is it green conscious, or is it aware of how many trees per capita, for how many dead trees does it take for my book to live?
Right.
It's a very important question that I address with myself. Like, do I need a forest so I can have a few people read my graphic novel?
I see it as a different problem, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I see it as whoever controls the format controls where things go.
Right, guys, just give me a moment. We can get back to that conversation in a minute. It's a whole different conversation. Because I wanted to ask Randy. I saved Randy for last because I think he's the one that has the deepest knowledge in this. So Randy. So I mean, obviously you've had a lot of success as a retailer.
What part would you like me to address first?
Right. So I mean, what success? What do you need? What do you think you need to have? Because you come at it from a retailer's perspective. You come at it as a publisher's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So as an indie publisher, retailer, all that jazz, where do you think, independent creators have to come from to approach retailers to get that success in sales?
Bad bulb there. To get that success in sales.
Yes, sir.
We're going to have to be entrepreneurs. We're going to have to be inventive and creative and go out and start thinking outside the box. That's the big thing. The retailers have been stuck in a box for 30 freaking years from the same distribution company that told them who their customer was and how they had to cater to it over and over and over and over again. And you've got Marvel and DC out there now banging their head against the wall trying to expand a market that's like putting a square peg into a round hole. And that's a problem. They got to go out and figure out how to get around that. Now, there's all sorts of different ways, and there's people that are out there. Some are out there trying, but there's just not enough right now. There has to be somebody out there that has to bang their head around and figure out how to get the maximum coverage, maximum profits for the most readership, and that's why you're seeing people bang into crowdfunding. That's why you're seeing people like Samedi going out there and trying less expensive paper stocks, pulp paper stocks. I think, especially with the way that, and I understand Alan's need for green, but I think tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, you're going to see a big evolution in hemp happen because hemp is coming along and folks are finally catching up to where we were before World War II and realizing how easy it is to make hemp paper as opposed to destroying a forest. And that could change. That could change tomorrow.
Yeah, there's no bleaching process with hemp.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of the advantages are crazy. Plus, you can grow a hemp crop and make twice as much paper from a hemp crop than you can from, as Alan said, destroying a forest. When it comes to digital, when it comes to retailing, whenever I take a product out to a retailer, I always give them 3 copies, and I keep track of them. And that's local guys here. Local to me is within a 25 to 30 mile radius of my house. And there's a good half dozen to, let's say 8 stores that I can go and visit real quick, and that I used to visit once a month. And I've made a couple of products that I got a little place with, but not very far. I did a Lindy Jack's collection, which is a little elf character that I had print on demand. And then I did a Herobot collection, which was I have an angry 3-foot tall giant robot that fights large monsters that I like doing. It's got the attitude of Wolverine and like a little toy robot that goes around and fights giant monsters. It's the easiest way to describe it. And I had some good limited success with that, but I have a problem with print on demand. Their per unit cost is too high to make it very profitable. So it's a conundrum, and it's one that creatively we're going to figure out how to beat. And then literally, I said that on Brian Morris's show, Rising, a clever title pending. We just went through this. There's going to be somebody out there, some entrepreneur that's going to come out and say, hey, here's a cheap format that's going through a cheap distribution system that I'm making money on. Boom. And then everybody and their brother is going to go over in that direction.
Right.
Now, when you talk to me about digital, I think it's too late for a lot of that. There has to be a lot of uneducation or backwards educating on digital before anybody's going to see any type of profit. Because these people, the creators out there that stuck their web strips out there for free initially, literally has spoiled it for everyone else. And I tried a digital strip for the longest time. I was part of Drunk Duck back when Drunk Duck was running, and could never get the audience, could never get the viewership, could never get the hit points. I tried syndicating my own strip on my own site. See, Alan turned the camera because he's laughing.
No, I was drinking coffee. Sorry.
You're all right. I'm sorry.
Maybe some laughing, but some coffee, more coffee than laughing. Sorry.
But all these folks that went out there and threw that strip up there for free, your Penny Arcade, your what is it, PvP or whatever it was called, literally spoiled and killed this market for any kind of profit margin for anybody who's putting content on and then trying to charge something for it. And McLeod had an awesome idea about micropayments and doing small payments here and there. But if you look, anybody right now that tries to start a website where they make people pay or they put a paywall up in order to get to their comics has a very, very or incredibly hard time surviving for 6 months, let alone sticking around for a while. Does anybody know a website that has a digital website online that has a paywall that's been around more than 2 or 3 years other than ERB's site? Edgar Rice Burroughs has a site where they charge and they do some phenomenal work where they're adapting Burroughs's books.
Right.
So it's not a paywall, but what Webtoon does is that there comes a point where if you get a certain amount of following, you can effectively get monetized, and you as a consumer pay to get the next 3 editions ahead. And I think that's where the smart way to do this comes in.
Yeah, but I can't see that being very profitable, Michael, because people will wait. People will wait for stuff. They're being programmed now on streaming services. This is a problem Disney Plus has run into now with The Mandalorian, because they're freaking that the numbers on Mandalorian are so low, because folks are sitting there and they're going to sit there until episode 8 is done, and then they're going to spend the time and binge the whole thing at once. And they're patiently waiting, because that's the kind of enjoyment they get. They get their enjoyment out of very large chunks. And again, streaming has kind of spoiled their audience in teaching them that that's the way to go. And then they try a weekly hit, because that's what they thrive on. They can, they thrive on that every hit. They're not going to see that now until after everything's loaded in. Especially on Mandalorian, they're sitting there going, we've only got 20,000 people. Let's watch this latest episode. What's going on? It's because everybody's patiently waiting. Their anticipation's being built by the viral videos, and then they're going to wait until episode 8 is up there and then binge everything all at once, if they find the time to sit around and do it all at once anyway. But digital, I think, is a very big problem. That's why digital sales have been so flat. There's so many, there has to be an avenue out there that we're going to figure out might not be the retailers. I hate to say it. They have a very hard time right now, especially here in the States. I know where over in Portugal, anywhere over in Europe, where comics are looked at as a high art form and are deeply appreciated much more than what we are here, because we're still looked down upon as kiddie literature, even though we're busting the walls out and literally 90% of the stuff we do is aimed at a higher demographic. Nobody wants to recognize that, at least until they go into a movie theater.
Yeah, which is the silliest thing that you could possibly think. I mean, it is. I mean, it's insane.
Well, and Marvel blew an super incredible opportunity. DC also, for not setting up kiosks and special books that these theater owners could have behind the counter to make them appreciate these comic book movies. How come they're not selling their ultimate, like when, for example, Black Widow's getting ready to come out? Marvel does a bunch of Black Widow books, but then they turn around and kill her before the movie comes out and replace her with another character, with a White Widow or a Yellow Widow or who knows what. If they were to sit down and actually do a nice thick reprint book and sell it for $10, available only at the theaters, they'd make a killing. Yeah. And that's the kind of expansion, and those people, the people that used to do that kind of marketing, and there used to be people out there at Marvel and DC that did that kind of marketing. They were the first ones to get flushed in the first round of firings and layoffs that they went through a couple of months ago. And they had people up at DC that were alternative thinkers for years that tried different things here and there. And it just dismays me why they don't go around, especially now that a lot of these theaters are conglomerating. And after this bug is done, there's probably only going to be a dozen, maybe or so chains outside of some mom and pop theaters that have the tenacity to stay open. that would be really willing to make a little bit of profit. DC walks in and says, hey, we got this book we want to sell for $10. It'll be a special book aimed specifically at the theaters. We're going to sell it to you for $5. What do you think? How many copies you want? And have them sit there and try it.
When you believe, I mean, it seems that AT&T and Disney are merely keeping the comic avenue of Marvel and DC as IP entities.
They are, but
merely to keep them to create content.
Yes.
Now they don't make any profit, with the actual physical content, but they make the bundle of their cash from just games, movies, TV series, and stuff like that.
And the reason they don't make profit on their comics is because they haven't tried to.
Exactly.
Within the last 20 years, they haven't bothered.
No, and I don't think they're planning to.
Diamond has gone out of their way to chase off their customer base. They've gone from 9,000 customers when they first became the big dog down to being 1,200. And that's not the comic producer's problem. That's Diamond's problem. And then they want to cry and say that their budget is thin. They can't afford to do this and that. Not our problem. Not our problem. Not the comic publisher's problem. They are the middleman who should always be thriving and surviving and figuring out how to expand this market. They haven't bothered to do that for 30 freaking years.
So therefore, trying to get.
That's a soapbox I can get real spirited over.
Yeah, that's why you have to go after, as independent creators. And I'll have to leave. Well, I'll say this here: you have to go after your own audience. And you cannot rely on any middleman.
Well, now
you have to ultimately, because even the numbers, you only if given that you have to give a 60% discount to a distributor so that they could do that. That means you only have to have a 2.5 less times, the number of people to do the equivalent amount of product, and you probably have a better relationship with that reader.
Yeah, that's what we're reduced to now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's where we are now.
Yeah, and again, it's going to take one or two really good entrepreneurs out there to come up with another system to work their way around this. And I love comic history. I'm a big fan of it. I'm writing a book on comic history to cover the direct market and everything right up to date. But if you see, every time this art form has a problem, every time that there is a situation that comes up, somebody creative comes out and figures out a new way around it, and this art form booms. And I think we're seeing that right now to an extent in the crowdfunding section. But I also see that the crowdfunding part of this as being a stepping stone up to the next level that's got to be coming.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, it's been a pleasure. I got to get going.
All right, John, always great to talk with you.
Great seeing you, John.
Take care, guys.
I'll talk to you later, John.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, guys, I have a question here from a fan, that Indie Comics guy, which I think is interesting. He says, our Kickstarter is taking away from the fan experience since it's mostly creators and friends funding each other, and it's not aimed at actual fans of comics. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that? Let's start with Marv. We'll work our way around. So, Marv, what do you think on that? How do you feel about that? Because I don't think this is necessarily true or right.
Yeah, because you always have contact with other artists, and the other artists have their fans, and their fans can also like what you're doing. So if you're doing a good comic, I believe everybody will be interested. Right, so I think that's what I think. If it's good, it's not only for your friends and family. Everybody, if you connect with other artists, if you go to live streams, and if you talk to everybody, and if everybody knows who you are, and if they like what you're doing, so I think you can have a good audience. That's what I think.
So, Joe, what do you think?
To be quite honest, it goes back to a question that I posed to a couple of crowdfunding communities here. I look at this question a little bit differently. It's like, I take it as like, how do you make somebody who's in your cold audience or don't know about you a fan of yours? because when you do a crowdfunding campaign, you already have an audience per se. That audience then comes in, they purchase, and then those people who already know you, like other creators and everything, come in to help out and they purchase. But the question is what comic book fan who do not know of you gain from the crowdfunding campaigns? Like how do you really truly reach them? And that's the question that's still up in the air. It's like you have to, is either going to be through whatever perks or tiers that you have, or doing that viral video that convinces them that your product is worthwhile in the long run. But there's no guaranteed way to make somebody who is cold to you automatically back.
No. Yeah. I mean, it's always difficult. I mean, I know for myself, the reason I say it's wrong is because I know when I do a Kickstarter, if I put it up, I have a small group, 40 or 50 people that will just come in and back it.
Exactly.
I don't know these people, personally. You understand? I've gotten to know them through like mailing them stuff and just doing videos and that sort of thing. Once in a while, I'll get an email and I'll interact with them that way. But I know these are my fans because these are not people I invite over for turkey dinners and stuff. So, these are, fans. But then there are some creators, they'll come on, they'll buy my stuff. They'll be like, all right, let's help JD out. He needs some help. That silly bastard. And they'll buy something for me, which is nice.
He did it again.
So, I mean, Michael, how do you feel about this? Because you've had a couple of really successful Indiegogos.
And so this is my whole thing. I don't think that person's assessment is fair whatsoever, because I'll tell you right now, I've got a lot of support from people that I've met doing streams, other creators, everything like that, and we're all trying to kind of push each other up. But at the end of the day, you can't make an accusation like that when, like, I post on active, like, comic book pages where there are fans all over the place. It's not like I'm not giving them the opportunity to get my books and get to know my work. They are choosing not to do that. So you can't hold the creators accountable if you're going to sit there and look at their work and not choose to back it. And that's not me like being like, oh, well, the creators are the only people having our backs. I have a whole bunch of fans. In fact, it was really heartwarming because, I went into this second book and a majority of the people that have backed this book, I have no clue who they are. Like, I recognize their names from the first book. And heck, the first backer on my Kickstarter was the first backer on my Indiegogo, and he messaged me like 20 times. He's like, I'm gonna do it. And like Chuck Pinot was furious because he was trying to be the first backer on the Kickstarter. Because Chuck and I have become good friends, and he was waiting for me to launch the Kickstarter for this one.
Right.
But like it's this whole thing where, again, right now, coming from the new creator perspective, I don't have the opportunity to go to a convention and get to know people. So I'm posting my stuff online. I'm posting my stuff on your local comic book, like, forums and what have you, where everyone's talking about their favorite current books, at least the ones that will allow me to post. I do freelance journalism for a Fear Geek, and some of the people that run one of the biggest DC fan pages on Facebook, and they will promote my book on occasion. But like, I'm going to tell you right now that that's not where the majority of my sales come from, and that's this whole thing where you can't sit here and say, oh, well, creators are just taking us out of the equation. They're just funding each other's books with their friends and everything, and trying to hold that against us when it's not like we're not giving you the opportunity to support us. If you want to support us as indie creators, awesome. Come out there and support us. This is how you do it, right? Like, we're actively giving you the opportunity to do that. And those of us that earn that support, they'll keep coming back because we're able to get that product in their hand. But then you also have the whole issue of, there are a lot of fans out there that read comics that haven't even entertained indie because they've been so bogged down by the main line that they don't know what to expect when they come over here, and better read the evil you know, right? So like, it's one of those things. Is even before I got involved, I hadn't read a lot of indie books, but the moment I started reading them, it was like I can't go back to mainline comics because what I'm reading over here are created by people who care, and what I'm reading over there is frankly crap.
Right.
So like, if you want to really support these indie creators and really give them the chance to do that, you know, it's not them not pushing their books to you. It's you not looking or you not pulling the trigger. You can't throw that in the creator's face, because we're doing everything that we can. God, Randy, how many times a week do I come on Indie Vault on average?
Well, we're on 3 times a week, so I would say 3 times a week. No, probably about 2 times a week.
Yeah, I hit Randy up pretty much every show that they're on. I'm like, hey, you got a spot? JD posted this thing on, and I was immediately like, the moment it came up on my news feed, yeah, I'll come talk comics. Like,
you hear that, Joey? He hits me up.
Yeah.
But it's this whole thing where there has to be a level of understanding where, you know, we as creators, we're trying to, this whole situation with the virus and everything has thrown us in a loop, thrown us for a loop too. And so we're just trying to adapt to continue to put out more content. And this is the most effective way that we can do that right now. And so if you want to support us, awesome. You have the means to do it. Just pay attention.
All right.
That's all I've got to say on it, I guess.
Thank you, Mike. So Joseph, excuse me. So, I mean, how do you feel about it, man? I mean, like let me put this back up here so you can get a fresh look at it, because I know I would have forgotten the question by this point. But I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, how do you feel about that?
I look at the question a little bit differently. I think that Indie Comics Guide kind of meant something differently than, I guess, maybe the way it's been taken so far from some of the responses. I think Randy mentioned this. It's kind of an issue of reach, right, for the independent comic medium, and even for the mainstream comic medium. All these kids that are going to these movies, they have no understanding that Walking Dead was first a comic book. They have no understanding that, you know, all these Marvel properties, all these DC properties were even comic books. And I've gotten scoffed at and scorned at, you know, at universities because I saw someone wearing a Captain America shirt. I was like, oh, cool, you read the comic books? He's like, it's not a comic book, it's a movie, you idiot. I'm like, okay, I guess you're right. But it's, I don't know, it's like the headline warriors. They don't, anything outside of their ecosystem, they don't really care about. And I guess, you know, Michael kind of alluded it to, we're really sensitive to the needs and the hurt and the pain of independent creators because we are experiencing that on a daily basis. But as Randy said, you know, how do we get to scale? You know, until these, you know, a couple smart guys come out with a way to really reduce the cost and really expand our reach as a medium, especially for independent comic creators, we're not going to get to scale. So we're not going to be able to print these books cheap enough to make a profit enough, or find a way to do it digitally that actually makes sense. Do we go the way of, you know, TV, episodic TV, and do installments of episodes, and then we get money from, you know, royalties based on commercials? But in order to get to scale there, we have to bring in a large enough viewing so that it actually makes sense for retailers to pay commercial spots. So it's such a multifaceted problem that I think we face, and it's an uphill battle. We're facing so many different problems at the same time. The evolution of digital, you know, competing content, then competing content against ourselves because we're the ones that are creating the content and mainstream comic books are creating the content, and then it's just getting, you know, revamped and done in a format where people actually care to binge watch it. They care to go to the movies and pay $10. They care to buy it on DVD and Blu-ray and collector's editions. They care to buy the video game adaptations and the action figures. So in a lot of ways, we're kind of the workhorses. And I think the original question posed was, and a lot of times we're so sensitive to each other's needs that it almost feels like we're sharing the same pie. And then every time Kickstarter takes a cut, you know, from the core people are trying to help promote each other, look, I said it earlier, there's not many of us independent creators are independently wealthy, and coming in and trying to do this outside of a, full-time job, and then you do this at 2 a.m, it's not likely. It's very difficult. I've lost a lot of money on a lot of projects, and at the same time, I've paid a lot of artists to help create content. So I feel like I'm trying to support the community, but after a while, it just gets exhausting unless you really, like Randy said, are able to expand our reach, to reach new audiences, to re-educate people. And with Kickstarter, there's a big learning curve. So there are a lot of traditional comic book buyers. Look, every year, the core market of physical comic book buyers increases in age. Every single year, they get older and older. It's not the younger crowd that has the credit card. It's not the 3-year-old or the 4-year-old that has a credit card and says, hey, I want to buy this book. So we have to find a way to capture, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60-year-olds that love comic books. Maybe you can introduce them to independent comic books. I don't know. But then you got to educate them on Kickstarter and crowdfunding. So it's not just, creators funding creators. And then, yeah, there is an organic audience on Kickstarter, but unless you have that community pre-built, unless you have your newsletter pre-built, unless you have a following, JD, you said you had 50 people that back you every time. It took a while. It wasn't overnight. And you have to really foster that community of fans that actually love your work, so that out of the gate you have 50 backers. So there's so many, it's such a multifaceted problem to handle. Nothing can be done overnight. It takes time and patience and tenacity, as you said, to build these audiences and to get that following. And maybe it's the people that are putting out the free digital comic strips, and then after 10 years of following of free content, they get to collect it and they fund a $200,000 Kickstarter. I don't know, that kind of seems to work, because then they pre-build their community, they build their following. So then when they do a collection as a paper format, it seems to be that they have a large following, a large audience that's willing to support the creator. I mean, look at Patreon and look at, YouTube. When they build their communities, they can find a way to monetize it, but you have to put in the time, the blood, sweat, and tears to build that community first.
Yeah, it does take a while. So, well, Alan, so let me show you the question again. How do you feel about that?
I think I'll just start off with saying that the comic book industry is a very generous community. We do support each other. And at this moment, we've discovered microbanking. That's what Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and all these formats are, just microbanking. And there's no problem with that. Yes, there's going to be complications of what happens when you have an enclosed system in which you just kind of finance each other's creations. But right now, as has been mentioned prior to my, to me making this, these comments, we are adapting right now. We're adapting into a industry. We're adapting while the industry is going through a major shift. Most stores won't survive the COVID.
Right.
Most brick and mortar stores are not going to survive the transition from COVID. There's no protection, there's no security, there's no systems in place to make sure that those stores are going to make it in 2021. So we're going to see a major decline in, sheer property in which can sell our product. With that, with this adapting that we are doing to the industry, we are finding that people are willing to fund our, creations. The question is, how can we take those funded creations and make sure that there is a platform for them to be distributed to unknown buyers, people who don't go to Indiegogo, people who don't go to Kickstarter for, new comic content. Where are they going to go, especially when the convention scene, there isn't going to be a convention scene in 2021. There isn't going to be any of that. I mean, with the response to individuals, how individuals responded to COVID, this thing is going to be here for a very long time, state by state, by nation, even worldwide. So we're going to have to maybe be here for a while. We're going to be here in this online cesspool of like, you know, circle jerking for a while. And we're going to be here and we're going to have to adapt while we're here. Right. So I think Kickstarter, Indiegogo are great ways to microbank, but you cannot rely on that as your main source of funding books. I see a lot of creators fund one book and then be back again to fund the second issue of the book, the third issue of the book, the fourth issue of the book. And I think that might be problematic. And it does not say that you're creating any new fan base to make sure that you can keep your comic printed without going back to your own, you know, investors, which what micro banking is. I mean, many African countries discovered this a long time ago. Comic books are now working with it now. It has been successful in making comic books, making people's comic books, their own personal works, become living things that could be held by people and be read by people. But it's merely a subscription route that we've created. This enclosed subscription route in which you fund what you are going to subscribe to.
So let me ask you this. What would you suggest to break that loop? Because obviously I'm stuck in that loop. I got 50. I've had 17 Kickstarters behind me. I've done a bunch of them all on the same, well, some on Tall Tales, some on the Awful Chronicles. So, you know, I'm always looking to break that glass ceiling. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we have to worry about the education of our populace. Do our population actually enjoy reading comic books as a medium that is not just for children? And for children, are we creating material that children want to read? Are they going to comic books for entertainment, for a source of joy? It comes down to the American appetite. If we're selling directly only in America, how that is perceived worldwide, each country has their own formula. The formula here in the US has been for a while these mom and pop or these brick and mortar stores that may or may not survive. So we have to break this cycle that we may be stuck in, and we have to just, you know, engage similar to how Scholastic engage with their younger population. Scholastic has been killing it in the comic book market. And
I see Randy.
Randy's coming up. Randy's coming up. Give him a minute. Go ahead, Alan. Keep going.
Sorry.
I mean, you know, Scholastic has been killing it for a minute. They have engaged. They have already a private market of children they can go to when schools were open. Schools will be open, sadly, depending. I mean, you know, we do try to make sure that our, you know, population is going to go to work, so they need somewhere to babysit their children.
Right.
So schools are always going to be the babysitter centers of America. Mm-hmm. And so Scholastic and you know, publishers who have that, you know, corner of the market are going to maintain that corner of the market. I guess I would just end with saying that we are adapting. We have a generous community that has been helping us publish our work, but we have to figure out to get people interested in thinking, like which was just mentioned, Captain America is a movie, not a comic book. And you're like, a lot of people are going to think that, and we're going to have to make sure that we maintain relevancy in this shifting, changing multimedia market in which mind you, again, here's another thing. I can go to Netflix and pay $14.99 for a whole month of unlimited, you know, shit. And comic books, I'm paying what, $10, $15 for something that I could probably read while taking the shit in the bathroom.
Right.
I'll leave it at that. I know Randy's going to correct me.
No, I'm not going to correct you. You're right on a lot of points. I have
there's the question for you, Randy.
I have one extra thing to say. I want your opinion on Archie Comics, because Archie Comics does not fall in the same category. They have survived a long time on IPs that most people don't think about.
Right.
And for them to survive the way that they did, even through what I consider a lot of periods where Marvel and DC have failed and almost or have gone through bankruptcy or gone through being annexed by greater corporations, they still are surviving for some reason. So that's something that kind of think about. It's like, what are they doing differently that other people in the comic industry are not doing?
Well, I guess we have to just look at what their formula is. Like, what is their distribution? What is their audience? What are they creating? All that is important in understanding what their equation is. Like, if we can figure out what that equation is, and if we can streamline that equation to multiple, content creators, then we can probably exhaust that equation, which is also another problem.
All right. So there we go. So Randy, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, there's multiple points. Go back to the indie comics guy. Our Kickstarter is taking away from the fan experience since it's mostly creators and friends funding each other. Gee, indie comics guy, 30 years ago, probably before you were born, sorry, we thought the same thing about the direct market. Oh, look, now everybody, that your casual reader is no longer going to be able to buy comics. They're going to be stuck having to go to a destination in order to buy their books once a week. Oh, that's going to kill the market. Lo and behold, 30 years later, took a while, but here we go. Comics used to be on these little spiral racks that they used to sell in the drugstore. Everybody passing by, every kid grabs them and says, "Mama, 10 cent, 25 cent comic." Oh, well, okay, I guess if it'll keep you quiet and I know you'll read it for 15 minutes, I'll buy it. You're going to read it on the John or whatever. I'll buy it. Comics are always evolving. You go back and you look at the history. We are at an evolutionary stage when it comes to comics. Yes, it may seem that Kickstarters are hitting the creators and friends funding each other. And there's a lot of there. That's like, what would you say? I can't draw a connection, but there's a lot of hate speak out there. Yeah. That narrow-mindedness that goes, yeah, well, that works good. Yeah, in 2 weeks that's going to be you're going to be nothing, right? You're hitting friends and other creators now because they know. It's a matter of education. It's a matter of the friends telling the friends, telling the friends, telling the friends, telling the friends, and watching those markets grow. You go back and you look at the evolution even of crowdfunding for the last 2 or 3 years, despite what Kickstarter says, because Kickstarter buried themselves in a bad way, in an inconvenient way that they never should have done with a gatekeeping. But this market is growing. This market isn't just growing, it's blowing up. With both Kickstarter, we just found out about what We Fund Me, isn't it? We Fund.
I think so. I think that's
We Fund Me. Nobody heard of that platform before, and boom, here it is. People out there trying to grow their own IP company on this one site. We're never heard of that platform before. There's more money now being poured into the crowdfunding than what you're seeing being poured into the retail market. And if it's not that way, because I don't have the figures in front of me, and this is also another point, nobody has figures in front of them. We're all speculating and speaking until these platforms want to come out and actually give figures. We don't know how much money Kickstarter's clearing. All we can hear is what their percentages have been that they want to release and admit to. And it's the same thing with Scholastic, the exact same thing. I don't see Telga or Raina Telgemeier running around in a fancy car and boasting about how much she's making. I don't hear that. I looked. I don't see it. Dogman, on the other hand, the guy whose name I can never remember, but he does.
Dan Slott. I got you, Randy.
Not Dan Slott. But anyway, that's Dwarf Boy. Dogman. Dogman, on the other hand, we know has cleared a good 500,000 units because Scholastic has released that number, but there's a huge difference between that exposure. Scholastic does have a contained market. They haven't had it the last year, though, have they? Because kids aren't in school. they do have their own market. They go out to all the box stores, Walmart's, Myers, Piggly Wiggly, or wherever. But we don't know how many of those books are coming back to them. We do know that the editor-in-chief at DC, who was in charge of their YA market, just got flushed. 3 months, amazingly, which should have been the first time they got their figures back. And she was shown the door. So that should and might tell you something. I don't know. It's speculation. You don't know what's actually happening out there because nobody wants to talk numbers. Nobody wants to admit Kickstarter had a crappy year as far as crowdfunding books goes. Their per unit number is dropping. But look at what happened over at Indiegogo. Ba-boom. You know, and however you fall politically, I fall on the side of great comics. And there's a reason people are spending that money out there. And this market, this crowdfunding market, is expanding like a nut because friends are starting to tell friends, hey, where the hell did you get that book? This book looks awesome. I picked up this book over on Kickstarter. So-and-so did. I have never bought, honest to God, I have never bought more books in the last year than the last 10 years because of all of this great stuff coming out from these crowdfunding platforms. I've never been more invested in comics personally, and that's because I'm a huge fan and I'm seeing all these awesome books come out. There's a Simone and Ajax collection coming out. I printed Simone and Ajax for a few years. I love that book. I love that. I got to buy that book. All of these things, and I'm out there telling people. I'm sharing it on Facebook. I'm showing all of my friends that this book's out there and it exists, and it's going to be great when it shows up. That's happening more and more and more and more and more. Now, this is the Wild West as far as the crowdfunding platforms. It's only going to last for a few years, 5 years, 10 years, maybe 20 years, unless somebody comes up with a permanent system that everybody and their brother relies on and it stays steady. After that, somebody else is going to have to come up and figure out a way to make money in this business. And I hope it's one of us, and I hope they let me in on it so that I can make money. And I'm going to go out and try a bunch of stuff and see how that works. And I know you're indie guy. You're out there trying a bunch of stuff. JD and I have been around since the 80s. We've been around since this was a for the love of it industry. And most of it still is, don't get me wrong, because I know I'm not stupid as to what it takes in order to print these books, especially the print on demand things. But you have to go out and keep pounding this pavement. You have to. And to think that you absolutely are not hitting a market like the direct market that's constantly circling the drain, that's constantly getting smaller. You're in the exact opposite situation with crowdfunding. It's only going to expand the farther out these brands become. And the more media exposure these brands get, the larger this market's going to become. We still have not hit, and I firmly believe this, we still have not hit the amount of people that used to buy comics back in the 80s and the 2000s. Those people aren't all dead yet, but they are coming back, and they're coming back, and they're investing, and they're reinvesting, and they're looking, and they're finding. And some of these guys are coming back drawing comics that haven't drawn comics in a decade or two. I'm seeing more people pop in on Facebook that, oh, dude, I remember you from 10, 20 years ago. I popped up out of nowhere, right? Even though I've been out there doing my own magazine. I've been out there banging in my own local area doing a newspaper. And I'm telling you, all you have to do is find that price point. All you have to do is find the accessibility with a quality, enough quality product for people to be entertained. And they're going to come back to you and they're going to love you. Now, you just have to find it. You might not find it today or tomorrow, but you're going to find it eventually. And like I said, somebody's going to stumble on that format that's going to make it. Dollar stores, theaters, I don't know. Theaters might not be around much. Disney is starting their own chain of theaters. I think they just bought a theater chain before the bug bite hit, or the bug hit. That they were going to become media stores. They were going to have a Disney store inside of the theaters, and you walk in, you see a Disney movie. It's a full Disney experience right there in every small town. If Disney was smart, they wouldn't be giving up on print books and trying to chase off an audience. They'd be out there doing mass reprints of everything they could possibly get their hands on in order to attract people in. Archie, like I said, Scholastic doesn't release their numbers, but I'm not seeing Raina out there talking that she's making a lot of money. And if she's not, then she really needs to renegotiate her contract. She honestly, truly does, because she deserves every bit from Scholastic that she could possibly get, because she is the creator on those books. And those books are everywhere. How many of those books are being returned? I don't know. If she's being paid by the book, that would be cool. Because then, you know, and it was a large enough amount instead of just pennies. You go back and you look at this market and see how little people were paid and how disrespectful people are of the creators in here in America. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. There have been too many people that have worked as cogs for the larger machine for too long. And it's time for this market to blow out artistically. It's time for us to be an artistic forum of self-expression. And that means a lot of independent books and a lot of different directions and a lot of different crowdfundings and a lot of different people stumbling into these campaigns. You'll be amazed. I think we're not going to see a cap on our growth at least until the middle of the next decade, maybe 2030. I don't know. I can't predict that far in advance anymore because you don't know what's around the corner. Tomorrow could be a miracle vaccine and everything's back to normal. Tomorrow, next week, you could get a EMT from the sun that literally blocks out all of the computers except for the ones that are guarded. And guess what happens then? Comics are going to be real hot then. Everybody and their brother is going to be looking for books and comics, you know, and they predict that's going to happen anytime now, depending upon who you're talking to. Look up Carrington event in history. It was 1859 or so. And the sun right now is just about starting to perk back up again from a long period of being very, very quiet, very still. So, and all it takes is one.
We're in the good 11 years of silence right now. We reached the sunset, the cycle that we're in. It's a very quiet cycle right now.
We're climbing up. We're climbing back up. Just take a look at the sun weather reports. They're just worried now. They're actually concerned that we're going to be in trouble because we're so reliant on our electronics that everything could fry out tomorrow, and then books and comics are going to be really hot then. Also, something that you need to consider, if you go back and you look in history, comics have always literally thrived during Depression eras, during the early 20s, the early 30s, when there's always been trouble during great wars, because we ship a lot of this stuff over to the boys overseas who don't have access to their electronics all the time, because 9 times out of 10, they're working in countries that don't have Wi-Fi. And they're reading comics. I sent my boxes of my newspapers over to the guys in Afghanistan to read, and they loved it. They ate it up. Tomorrow, something could happen. Comics could be hot again. You don't ever know. Tomorrow, somebody might find the ultimate digital platform. You never know. You just have to keep your eyes open. And believe me when I tell you, don't depend upon any of these corporations out there to do it for us, because we're in an artistic form of self-expression, and that self is the key here. We might be able to get together and make companies where all of us are pushing forward in one direction at once. But these big corporations are only out there to serve their stockholders. That's all they're worried about, is that bottom line. That's why Disney doesn't care. That's why AT&T does not care about the publishing end of thing. It could dry up and blow away tomorrow. And in their mind, they might figure they're saving themselves a couple $1 million in investment money. And they can just keep them IPs running through TV and movies. What's that phone? You might as well say it.
His phone is dying.
My phone's dying.
Oh.
I gotta go, guys.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Sorry, Joseph.
Joseph, before you go, tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
Heroesforcauses.com. You'll find our pediatric brain cancer and then our cystic fibrosis. Oh.
And get a hold of us whenever you want to be on the air, Joseph.
Seriously. I think his phone died finally.
I'm pretty sure it did. It's dead. It's dead.
It's heroforcauses.com. I'm looking at the site right now. At least I caught that.
Heroforcauses.com. Joseph does some great work.
Yeah.
Great work.
Thank you,
I
Joseph.
think he's officially frozen.
Yeah, I think he's gone, so I'm going to pull him out. There we go. All right.
Sounds like Alan's working on his garage project right now.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm
That's
also
all right.
cooking while we're talking.
Oh, it's cooking. That's what it is. He's chopping up veggies.
Yeah, he had a good sun rays coming off the mast there a second ago. It's like, yeah, he's working on that evil villain mode.
I just thought he was aiming for that.
I'm glad you understand.
I thought he was aiming for that J.J. Abrams lens flare.
There's another question here from that indie comics head that I'm going to answer personally. I'm just going to show it to everybody, but I'm going to answer it personally.
Does it require flipping a bird?
No.
No.
Let's see.
Oh, okay.
I guess if I make a comic book, can I get a girlfriend? The answer is no. All right, so let's move on.
You are indie
comics
indie
will
guy.
break your heart, kid.
Yeah, indie guy, you are so lucky to be doing this now.
Yeah,
because I retailed for a good decade, and I had that indie comic bug bite me literally about 85. Okay, and there was a long period of time. I went through a first marriage, 5 years up and gone. Done. And a divorce is the worst thing that I could ever wish upon anybody. I don't wish upon anybody. Believe me, it's rough. What? Who? Mike? Mike, you were going to say something?
I just said, it's not fun.
Yeah, not fun. Not fun. I was retailing when I met my current wife, and she kept coming into the store, and she was a regular reader of comics. And back then, that was a unicorn, and I knew it was. I knew it was at the time. It was very incredibly rare to come in and have somebody buy one of every superhero book that was on the stands back when you can afford to buy one of every superhero book that was on the stand and still not, break your bank. But she was heavy into comics. She's got more comics than I do. We went out, she had a kid. I had a kid. We were talking about taking them bowling. And then we were talking about, before we take them bowling, maybe you and I should go out and see a movie. Okay, we'll go out and see a movie. So we went out and seen Beetlejuice. That's how old this is, or that's how old we are. And it was instant karma. We were together. I was moved in within a week. We haven't been apart much since. I mean, granted, she's got a third shift job, so there were times that I never saw her for all the way through the week. But for the most part, we've been together and pretty good. But finding a girlfriend now is so much more easier because there's so many more women into this market. And this market is opening up so much that, and again, it's like the Wild West. You see all of this at the conventions. There used to be times at shows, indie guy, that to see a girl there meant one of two things. One, she was either into Star Trek and not that pretty, or two, she was there because her boyfriend dragged her there, and she had this look of disdain on her face and her arms crossed like, I don't even want to be here. You don't have that now. You have people out there that are reading comics, reading science fiction, that are eating this stuff up, that look, that do cosplay, that look incredibly good. So you're in a much better market, a much better situation to pick up a girlfriend than I was 30 years ago. And, you need, believe me, to be in this market, you need to find somebody who at least sympathizes with what you're doing, or let alone understand it and can deal with your eccentricities of working until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning in order to get everything looking right. So, and that's a rare bird indeed. So, find it and keep it and appreciate it.
Yep. Listen, I said no facetiously. I married my artist, so and we met through comics, doing our comics, and that's. Daphne and I have been together forever. So you can't find somebody, and yes, you have to appreciate them, you have to love them, but they have to be in it with you, because that's the only way it's going to work. My recommendation to anybody who's looking for a girlfriend is to stop looking and to keep doing what you're doing and get more involved in it. Keep your eyes open. You'd be amazed what just stumbles right across your sometimes your lap, literally.
Yeah.
And just remember, it's always the girl you're not looking at that's looking at you.
Yeah.
Just remember that, because there's always that chick you're looking at and she's not paying you any mind. It's her friend next to her that's probably looking at you.
Truer words have probably never been spoken.
There's a lot of wisdom in that.
So look,
but my first wife didn't like comics. She didn't appreciate comics. She didn't understand that I took a month in order to get an 8-page story together, because I had somebody tell me that what I was doing was good enough to be printed, and to do a story and send it to him and he'd print it. I'm like, oh, geez. I tensed up, overthought, and kept doing the same page over and over again, the same panel over and over again until it looked right to me. And I finally sent it, and he says, this is great. Do more. So that's the way that works. Yeah. So, right, so indie guy, good luck to you.
Exactly. So look, I'm going to pop this up. Please say Henry. I don't know what this means, but okay, there you go, Henry. Good for you. All right.
Okay. I think somebody is promoting a book whose main character is Henry somebody.
I guess so. But guys, we've been at this for a couple hours, so I want to wrap it up. So I'm gonna give everybody an opportunity to say goodnight and to let everybody know where they can find you and your work. So Marv, let's start with you. Where can everybody find you and your work?
Yeah, I can put just an hashtag, the Sim Killer, and you'll find me on the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and also on YouTube. That's it.
All right, cool. Joe?
Thank you so much for having me, JD. Thank you.
Yeah, listen, sometimes I got to get you on the regular show so we can just do a one-on-one.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
All right. So, Joe, where can everybody find you?
Well, you could probably find me right back on YouTube in less than 2.5 hours because I do have, I'm about to interview, I believe, LaShawn Coven,
Nice.
Coven, who has Comics and Geeks at Beverage Lounge and started her own Kickstarter called Beautiful Soldiers as of, I believe it was Friday.
Cool.
Her Kickstarter launch. So I have an exclusive interview with her here at 8 o'clock on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. You can get our comic books at our company website, which is exigencystudios.com, which is XIGENCY studios.com. I'm also on Facebook up under Joe D. McPhee and up under the company name Exigency Studios, as well as on DeviantArt up under Silverbolt Port.
Alan, are you still there? Or are you cooking?
Yes, I am.
So where can everybody find you and your work?
Well, you can find me at phantomelectric.com. You can see it with, I've changed my name to my website, phantomelectric.com with a K at the end. You will, if you visit, hopefully every week we have new episodes of comics that you can read, from Babylon, Love is a Dead Place, Rise of the Black Panthers, and a new series that I've been working on called Kung Fu Devil. So please come on down, check me out, and if you have any extra time, I am looking for henchmen, hench persons or hench people. If you have nothing to do with your life, I have something to do with your life. Thank you.
Might be hitting you up.
So, Randy, where can everybody find you?
I just had a flash of the old Adam West Batman with the guys with the black shirts that says henchman written across it.
That's what we need.
Hey, you can find me on Facebook under Randy Zimmerman. You can find me under Twitter, though I don't twit very often. I usually am just up there for fun and the Hold My Beer page. And under Randy Zim. I am on the Indie Volt Radio Network Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. We do a regular Indie Volt podcast where we talk about the industry just like we were talking here. Thursday mornings, if you're awake enough at 9 a.m., I do the Breakfast Buzz where we talk about the business again with a little bit of caffeine rushing through our veins. And then on Sunday morning, I do a show called Sunday Funnies that's aimed at the lighthearted, more whimsical side of comics. And this Sunday at 9 a.m., all those times are Eastern Standard Time, by the way. 9 a.m., we're going to have the author Glenn B. Fleming on, who has written a ton of books and does a magazine called Comics Unlimited that's available on Amazon. He's done books on Easter Island, on the Kennedy assassination, and a couple books on that. We spent a couple of hours when I was double checking his software. He was telling me all about the Kennedy assassination. I'm like, whew. Boy, I thought I knew a lot about that, but you know it all. Holy crap. Just amazing. And he just released or is about to release his third issue of Comics Unlimited that's going to focus on the golden age of comics. So that's what we're going to be talking about on the Sunday Funnies, not just his magazine, but the golden age of comics back when they were selling 4.5 million copies of Captain Marvel Adventures every other week for a reason. So figure that out and maybe apply this, update it to modern society, and hey, you could be rich.
There you go.
So it's Sunday tomorrow morning. Actually, this is Saturday, isn't it? Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
With Daphne. Thanks. And I will most
certainly
be asleep.
Daphne will be there, and JD will be asleep. Yeah,
I'll be asleep.
Well,
absolutely.
JD may be asleep, but I'll definitely be watching because Billy Batson's the best. But anyways, you can find me on Facebook under Nine Realms Publishing is where we post a lot of our updates. On Twitter, we're at ElysianFields_0. We're pretty active up there. And as I said at the beginning of the show, We launched our first ever Elysian Fields Kickstarter here on Friday, and we are in demand on Indiegogo and currently have a Thanksgiving weekend sale going on for our original art, where all of our original art pieces are 50% off. So please come give us a look out, and we love making these books, and hopefully you love reading them.
Cool.
There you go. Awesome. And I have my own Indiegogo going on right now for the Awful Chronicles. These are some of the books that are currently up there. So go check it out. Help support the channel. Help support this fantastic little magical mouse of mine. Anyway, so guys, thank you so much. It was awesome having you all on. I'm really happy that you guys came on. And then like Marv, Alan, and I guess, Joseph and a couple of the other guys who dropped out. I got to get you guys on to do one-on-ones. And Joe, whenever, you're always welcome. And Mike, you're always welcome. And Randy, of course. So thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.
All right.
And I'll be talking to you all soon.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.
Yep.
Stay healthy.
Live and